campaign that's kind of been most talked about and had the most publicity has been the RSPCA one, hasn't it? You know, the investigations into these farms that were under the RSPCA's Assured scheme, and then the campaign to get the RSPCA to drop that scheme. And
you know, I thought you would bring that up, and I wanted to ask the question. I was kind of, you know, going on my kind of daily walk, and I was thinking, you know, have we missed something? Because we've both been fairly critical of it, and yet it seems as popular as ever. It's as strong as ever. Are there something that we're missing? Because the things that I get from it is that there's the idea that some people got the idea that the RSPCA could go vegan, and secondly, and I think this is the main thing, is that the RSPCA is so powerful and culturally important that it convinces people to exploit our fellow animals. Now, I'm not convinced on that one. I mean, most people I've ever met have been critical of the RSPCA. You know, I'm not quite sure that they're the cultural force that we're assuming. But am I wrong? In other words, you know, we've got so many groups, so many individuals, so many influencers focused on the RSPCA. Are we missing something?
I kind of don't think so. I think it's kind of, in a sense, it kind of falls in line with how a lot of people's brains operate, or probably most people's brains operate. But kind of, should we be going along with that, or should we be actually educating, encouraging, persuading people to think differently about things? Because it's a kind of immediatism thing, isn't it? It's like people are attracted to campaigns where they can see there's a kind of where they can see like an achievable victory or a possible achievable victory in the near future. And so the idea of the RSPCA dropping the Assured scheme falls into that category, and people are attracted to that. But I think it causes, you know, that aspect of human beings where they have this immediacy in their thinking, it can be harmful because it prevents
Is it
people.
not their status, though, Ronnie? Yeah, I mean, like there's a couple of quotes in the comment already. I mean, like I wish they were on our and the animal's side. Now they would argue that they are, right?
Yeah,
it's just that from a welfare point of view and not a vegan point of
view. You see, the RSPCA are kind of, they're a kind of chimera organization in a way, on some things regarding the use and oppression of other animals by humans. They are abolitionist, or they become abolitionist. They haven't always been. I mean, for instance, regarding greyhound racing, the RSPCA is abolitionist. Regarding hunting, the RSPCA is abolitionist. They want these things completely done away with. Now, they haven't been abolitionists forever on either of those two things. They've changed their stance, probably in accordance with public opinion, perhaps. They've changed their stance on those things. But on other things, they're not abolitionists. And you know, the biggest area where they're not abolitionists in terms of the you know, the use of other animals for food. They're not abolitionist on that. They're welfarist on that. See, and they are welfarist on they're welfarist on other things. I think they're probably welfarist with regard to animal experiments. I'm not quite sure what their latest is in like they advocate like a reduction and eventual bringing to an end of animal experiments, whereas an abolition position is that you know they are immoral and should come to an end immediately. You know, so they're a mixture of things, and to persuade the RSPCA to become like abolitionist, which the RSPCA would have to become if the RSPCA were going to promote veganism, I think is a very big shout. Is really a very, very big shout. And so if that is the kind of aim of vegans, then my question would be: is that a good use of your energy? Is that a good use of your resources in terms of time, effort, and money? That campaign is in terms of the chances of it succeeding. And would it be better to put those resources into actually educating members of the public to become vegan? That would be what I would say about that. And the other thing, regarding the Assured scheme, I think what we've got, and what's kind of not been, I mean, yeah, I can understand people being angry and upset about the RSPCA promoting animal farming and, giving its seal of approval to these farms that have been exposed.
Though, Ronnie, they would not characterize what they're doing in those terms, though.
Sorry, who wouldn't? The vegans?
The RSPCA wouldn't. What they would say is, okay, you vegans, you abolitionists, you go and do your own thing, but animal use is not going to stop anytime soon. We're welfareists, which means that we get our fingers dirty by trying to do the best we can in a situation where other animals are going to be used for decades.
Yeah. That would be their arguments.
Yeah.
It's an argument I don't go along with, because I think if all the resources of the RSPCA were put into vegan education, then we would get welfareism anyway, because we would get greater welfare anyway, because the organisations.
Ronnie, their resources. Yeah. If they took a vegan stance, the resources you're talking about would suddenly disappear, wouldn't they?
Yeah, and I think this is the other. This is the other issue that they employ. They have to raise, I think it's several $100 million a year. Their kind of the money they've got coming in. The money they spend on the Assured scheme is a tiny fraction of the total amount of money they actually spend. And of course, they've got to have, they spend hundreds of millions a year, so they've got to have that money coming in every year. They've got offices, they've got staff. So, so in a sense, their priority is going to be fundraising. And you're right that if they advocated veganism, all the people that currently support the RSPCA, who are people that kind of who are concerned about, say, dogs and cats and are happily consuming animal products, are those people going to carry on donating to the RSPCA? And so the RSPCA, they're going to be concerned they're going to lose all those donations, aren't they? If they advocate for veganism.
Yeah, so there's two things to that, though, Ronnie. I mean, you could be cynical and say, well, that they're worried about their jobs, but what they would say is that they're worried about the influence that they can have within a system that they want to regulate. We want to abolish that system. They want to regulate it because they think that system is not going anywhere.
No, I mean, I've got an issue with that argument, but despite that, that is what they believe, and we kind of are going on what they themselves believe. If we're wanting to change what their policies are, and that is why it would be really difficult to persuade the RSPCA to advocate for veganism, because that would be a huge stumbling block in the way of that. The fact that they know that they'd lose donations if they did that.
But they'd also say, Ronnie, that they would lose influence with the farmers. Now, I mean, the vegan community would say, well, what you're doing with the farmers is a load of crap. But what they would say is that if we weren't doing what we are doing, things would be worse than they are even now, right? That's the argument that they make on their website.
Yeah, they would make that argument. I mean, my counter argument to that would be that if all the resources were put into campaigning for veganism, and so more and more people became vegan, in its desperation to remain afloat, the industry would bring in welfare measures itself, and that's how you get welfare, even though we wouldn't be calling for welfare. The industry would desperately try to improve its image all the time, because it would know, that they'd be losing money, they'd be losing consumers. So the work that they bring in the welfare anyway. So in a sense, by campaigning for veganism, you'd get welfare as a kind of like side issue anyway. And that's how I think.
But I mean, are you saying, we campaign for veganism or the RSPCA do?
Well, I think if the RSPCA, suddenly became an organisation that campaigned for veganism was no longer.
You just said that they can't. You just said they can't do that.
No, well, theoretically they can, but I think there's huge stumbling blocks in the way of that, and it would be hugely difficult to persuade them to do it. And of course, one of the reasons is what you said, that they themselves believe that, they need to do what they're doing, and they also need they need the funds coming in that they would lose if they advocate for veganism. So what I'm saying is it's such a difficult proposition.
I mean, this is not an easy thing. Let's go back to the thing about deceiving the public. I wonder whether this is true. Do you think that the RSPCA endorsement, what socially, economically, culturally, does that do, if anything?
Well, with regard to deceiving the public,
that's the main thing that the activists are saying to us.
Yeah. Now, I think it's kind of a question of how, all these kind of instances of cruelty to animals that have been exposed on the RSPCA Assured farms. Is it a situation? Have the RSPCA sort of created a situation for themselves that they can't cope with? In other words, they've given this assured label to loads of farms, and obviously all those farms would kind of need to be inspected and checked.
Yeah, I think that bit is true. Yeah,
and they haven't got the capacity to do it. So that
they can't monitor their own scheme.
Yeah, I've got a feeling that from a welfarist, position, that it was like a well-meaning, because I don't think when you kind of look at the sort of financial side of it, I don't think the RSPCA make any money from the Assured scheme. It seems to me that
they say they don't. Yeah.
Well, it seems to me, but it's a very, very small. The money they get, the ins and outs of the money with regard to the Assured scheme is only a tiny percentage of their budget. So I don't think they've done it as a money making thing. I don't think.
I agree with you on that, Ronnie. And so that means that when vegans complain that they're part of the meat industry, that's not really true.
I think they've kind of wanted to do something about farms as part of their sort of welfarist mandate.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean that they're part of the meat industry. They want to regulate it.
They want to regulate it, yeah. But they kind of regulate a lot of things. I mean, in terms of like dogs and cats, they're regulatory, aren't they? They don't say, right, we don't think anyone should deliberately or negligently breed dogs and cats. That shouldn't happen, because
they're not abolitionists about animal companions.
They're not abolitionists about. No, they're not abolitionists about. They regulate. They want the breeding of those animals to be regulated, and people
what they'd say is that they are the realists here, that they're not idealists. They haven't got their head in the cloud. They deal with what reality is, and the reality is that animal use is endemic, and it will continue for years and years and decades and decades. So therefore, they have to do it to lessen the cruelty.
That's their position.
Yeah, but is it wrong?
I think it's I don't think it's the best use of resources. I prefer to see all those resources put into vegan education, and I think we get further if they work.
But Ronnie, you've said already that they would have to close themselves down if they did that.
Well, yeah, you see, they'd become a lot smaller, wouldn't they? Because there would be people that wouldn't donate to that. You see. Yeah. And so that's something that.
So then, as far as they're concerned, as welfarists, they would think, well, that just means that we're going to lose all the influence that we've got.
Well, I think the thing is, I think the difficulties of you see, there's kind of two aspects to the campaign with regard to the RSPCA. The one aspect is for them to drop the Assured label, And the other aspect of it is that they should advocate for like a plant-based future, so to speak, which isn't the same as advocating for veganism, of course. It isn't the same as advocating for veganism. With regard to the Assured scheme, you see, I think we've got to ask ourselves, if the RSPCA dropped the Assured scheme,
what
way would other animals be benefited? If we really think about it, in what way would other animals be benefited, right? Because if the RSPCA dropped the Assured scheme, does that mean that suddenly a load of members of the public that currently purchase animal products would become vegan?
Well, that's what activists have said to me.
But how is that going to? You see, what is the psychology? Somebody goes into a supermarket to purchase animal products, and they kind of have got a bit of a conscience about them. They kind of want, they think they want to be ethical, and so they say, right, I'm going to purchase an RSPCA Assured a product. Now, if that product suddenly becomes no longer RSPCA Assured, what is that person going to do? Are they going to say, right, that product there, that piece of meat is no longer RSPCA Assured, so therefore I'm going to become vegan? Is that what they're going to do? Or are they going to look for like the next best? Because the RSPCA scheme isn't the only one that promotes animal products as high welfare. There are other schemes, and I think a lot of the supermarkets have their own schemes. So if the person has it in their mind that they're going to purchase animal products, aren't they just going to buy one of those other products?
Yeah,
unless they're educated about veganism.
Yeah, that's Andy Atkinson's thing, because it's gonna take a while, and it's taken a while already. So if the RSPCA do abandon it, by the time those RSPCA labels are not there, there's going to be other ones. There are other ones already, isn't there?
Unless you educate people about the fundamental wrong, unless you educate people that it's fundamentally wrong to exploit, oppress, and kill other animals for food.
But this is the important point here, is the fact that if you did a survey, I'm convinced about this, if you did a survey, I don't think the public would probably differentiate between Red Tractor, the RSPCA sign.
No,
but that's what the campaign is based on, Ronnie.
They wouldn't. So in fact, so getting rid of the RSPCA Assured label would actually make no difference in terms of other animals being spared from exploitation.
So what's the point of having a campaign to get the RSPCA to drop that label that won't do any good then?
Well, there is no point, but it's just that because the RSPCA is seen as an organisation that opposes cruelty, and they've been exposed as endorsing products that involve cruelty. That's made people angry, and people want them to stop. And I can kind of understand that. But when you look at it, the trouble is people never look at things, or very rarely look at things at a deep enough level. They don't look deeply enough into things. When you look more deeply into it and say, yes, but what actual difference will that make for animals? It won't make any. It won't make any difference, them dropping that scheme. So all that energy and effort and money that's been poured into that campaign would be far better to be put into vegan education, to put into getting out there and educating people to understand the fundamental wrong of exploiting other animals.
How do you know that? How do you know that, Ronnie? It won't make any difference.
Well, because from what I've just said, what will be the actual effect on consumers of those products no longer being RSPCA Assured?
Yeah, you see, nobody's got any data on this, because the activists say that them dropping that label would be very significant, and we're saying no, it won't.
But if you look at if someone's going into a supermarket to buy an animal product, and that person hasn't been educated about the fundamental wrong of oppressing and exploiting other animals for food, right, and killing them for food, then that person isn't going to become vegan if there's no RSPCA assured product.
Yeah, but the activists are saying yes, they will.
But how's that? Isn't it much more likely, especially in an environment where you've got other products that are labelled as so-called high welfare? Isn't it much more likely that those people will switch to those products? Isn't that the likely outcome? Yeah, and isn't it
maybe what we need here is a bit of research. That's what I'm saying. If you had a focus group, I'm convinced that people wouldn't know the difference between all these different labels. And if one of them went and the other ones remained and another one added to it, I think they'd just go for that instead. Now, that's what I think.
No,
I don't know. I don't know that.
Yeah, I think that, unless you educate people that it's fundamentally wrong to consume animal products, they're just going to look for another so-called high welfare animal product to consume, aren't they?
Yeah, well, that's right. But the point is, you see, that's completely out of the remit of the RSPCA as we know it. So the activists are saying that if the labels went, that would be a significant driver for people to go, right, that's it.
It depends. You see, it depends what was said in conjunction with the labels going. Are the RSPCA going to say, right, we're removing these labels because we think that we're opposed to the exploitation of other animals for food, and we think that we want people to adopt
they say we're removing them because it hasn't worked. That's what they say.
Yeah, so that doesn't educate people in any way to become vegan or to stop consuming animal products, does it? See, but
you see, the thing is, Ronnie, the activists seem to think that it will be automatic, that the absence of the RSPCA label will automatically make vegans.
But that doesn't make sense, especially in an environment where you've got other.
Well, that's what they keep saying, Ronnie.
But it doesn't. But it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. It really doesn't make sense to me. I mean, in a way, a campaign to get the RSA, we want the RSPCA to advocate for a plant-based future. To me, that makes more sense because, in my view, if they drop the Assured scheme, it makes no difference to other animals. If they advocate for a plant-based future, then that could make a difference to other animals. If that persuades members of the public to stop consuming animal products. But how likely is it that the RSPCA are going to do that? And how much effort is going to be poured into trying to persuade the RSPCA to do that with a very slim chance of it succeeding? Isn't it better to put that energy into vegan outreach, where that if you educate someone to become vegan, or at least to not consume animal products, that will have a knock-on effect of less demand for other animals to be exploited and killed?
What do you make of this from Deb? I think making bigger cages, free-range labels, even if they're a myth, gives people permission. Well, I'm not sure if they need permission, and makes them feel better about consuming our fellow animals. I think that is true.
Yeah, I think it's true.
Yeah, but the argument is, okay, well, it's not as though nobody's going to supply a label. The argument is that the RSPCA shouldn't, but the other people, Red Tractor, will continue to.
Yeah, so they'll continue, and people will just switch, because you see what's probably happened at the moment is that people have been put off buying stuff that's RSPCA assured. If now the link is RSPCA assured equals cruelty, because people have heard about all these exposés of RSPCA assured farms, and people go, I'm not going to buy RSPCA assured because what's assured about those products? There's cruelty involved. So what I'm going to do is go buy Red Tractor, or go buy the supermarket's own high welfare thing, because they're okay. They're not tainted with the RSPCA. To me, that's probably what's happening in many cases now.
This can't be sorted out without some research, because we're all speculating, but none of us.
We're all speculating, but we kind of speculate all the time about different things, and we kind of, in doing that, we kind of think things through rationally, and sort of you know, I'd put myself in the position of a person who go, for instance, you know, I try and buy organic. I try and buy organic products, you know, when I can, because they're kind of more ethical. And so I went into the supermarket and I wanted to buy some organic peanut butter. And I wanted to buy peanut butter. And I thought, well, I'm going to go into the supermarket. I'm going to buy organic peanut butter. If there was no organic peanut butter, I wouldn't say, right, I'm not going to buy any peanut butter. I'd look for the next best thing. I'd look for the fair trade, or look for the next best thing, and I'd buy that.
Yeah.
And I think the psychology of people that can, you know, go in supermarkets to purchase animal products is,
I mean, that's just the psychology of consumerism. You look for the next best thing.
Yeah. And I think that's what they do. And unless they're kind of sort of educated that kind of consuming any of these things is problematic ethically, then they are just going to look for the next best thing, or look for the equivalent, look for another animal product that's got a so-called high welfare label on it, which there are. That's the reality of that, and that's why I say that as far as I'm concerned, I can't see it making any difference whether or not the RSPCA keep the Assured scheme. I can't see that making any difference at all to other animals. So.
No, but the point is, Ronnie, you've got a hell of a lot of experienced, some of them well-paid, advocates saying exactly that will be what the outcome
I don't see. Well, but yeah, I'd like to have a conversation with them and say, explain to me how you see that. Explain to me what your reasoning is on that.
You know what I'm going to say. The real problem is that the movement's analysis has been completely fecked up because of the word cruelty, and the vegan mind has been scrambled by the fact that they see the word cruelty in the title of the RSPCA, and this means that their analysis now is just completely off the wall, because they're not understanding that the word cruelty for a vegan and the word cruelty for the RSPCA are different things. The word cruelty for a vegan and the word cruelty for the general population who are cultural speciesists are different things. They don't mean the thing. The word cruelty or anti-cruelty for vegans means vegan. The only people who think that are vegans.
Oh yes, no, I agree with you, and it's a problem. I mean, just leave the RSPCA alone. Just unless you're going to make a huge effort. The only way I could see that the RSPCA would ever become like pro-vegan is for them to be taken over, is to get vegans elected onto their ruling board, which is what happened when the RSPCA
and then they would have to put forward. They would have to put forward proposals which effectively would financially cripple them.
Well, it would financially considerably reduce the amount they receive. They'd have to cut their staff and stuff like that. If that was to happen, and so that's, you know, it'd be a lot of hard work to actually do that, you know, to sort of get those people elected, because you have to persuade a load of vegans to join the RSPCA, and there'd be reluctance.
Yeah, it'd be years and years and years.
It would be. It would take years, and it's just a question of like whether it's worth it. You know, what is the best use of our resources? You know, and to me, the best what we need is a widespread campaign of vegan outreach. We need everyone on board with it. We need all the organisations on board with it. The priorities. You know, we need this massive, you know, like offensive, I suppose. Offensive probably might not be the right word. Massive mobilization everywhere to spread vegan education, and we need all organisations to be on board with it, and all influencers to be on board with it.
I agree with you. Now, Ronnie, I hate to do this to you, but I've got about 3, if not 4 clips. So if we can have just a little intermission and then come back to it, because
I need to go for a wee anyway.
Oh well, you go and do that while this is playing. Then that's grand. That
great.
Well.
All right, mate. Yeah. I'll see you in a minute.
I wish a very happy holiday time to every vegan on earth. And my message to you is always to know that we are on the right side of history. And during this holiday period, we have our own holy trinity that give us the strength and determination to create that vegan world that we desire so much. On our left, we have compassion that allows us to reach out to every life on earth and to recognize their irreplaceable value. On our right, we have justice that drives us to action and to demand radical fundamental change. And in the center, in our hearts, we have love, with which we embrace all of our fellow earthlings. We include everyone, we exclude none. So what I want you to understand is that even when times are tough, and I know that Christmas time in particular can be challenging, we are not alone. Not only do we have one another, we have compassion on our side, we have justice on our side, we have love on our side, we have history on our side. We are how humanity and life on earth has a future. We are tomorrow's promise made real today.
I'm with you. I'm not quite sure where the expectation is of either large change in the RSPCA or the absence of the labels going to mean anything to many people.
No, I don't think it will. Then people aren't putting themselves in the shoes of the person who goes in the shop or the supermarket to purchase animal products. They're not putting them in there. You know, they're not thinking as that person would think. That's the problem. And I think it's anger. You know, the RSPCA is, you know, against cruelty. So why are they promoting cruelty? You know, and that makes people angry, and they want to do something about it. And I can understand that. I can understand that. But when you think deeper about it and think, well, you know, what difference to other animals is this campaign going to really make? You think at that level, then I think the conclusion is it's not going to make any. I would imagine they're now regretting that they ever went down the road of the Assured scheme, because it's, you know, they're
I think that was fairly possible. But the thing is, they will still argue that the non-assured farms will be even worse. That's what they'll argue. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know.
Probably overall they would be. Probably overall they would be, because
yeah, but looking at the footage, it's almost like, how could you get worse than this?
Well, yes, but the point is that those farmers that were exposed are only a percentage of the farms that are RSPCA assured. So some of the other farms that weren't exposed, you know, there isn't footage from every single farm that's RSPCA assured, is there? So maybe on some of the other farms that you don't get these extremes of, you know, ill treatment of other animals.
Yeah, I inquired into that. Yeah, I inquired into that, and I think they're suggesting that when they did their 45 farms, that they released footage from all of them, every single one. I think that's what they said.
Well, then you see that. Then I would say that then that would be the case on all farms, whether they're RSPCA assured or not. You know, then the RSPCA assured aren't going to be worse than other farms that aren't, are they?
Maybe the argument is a few things, like the RSPCA assured are just as bad as everybody else. The RSPCA going, the assured ones are a bit better than everybody else, and that's why we're in there in the first place. Because if we don't talk to the farmers, we can't influence them at all. So that's got to be their argument. The counter argument is, you're doing a shit job.
Well, it obviously does seem that they're not doing a great job, but is that because they've bitten off more than they can chew?
Yeah, I think that's true. Yeah,
I think that's more like, I don't think that, you know, they're deliberately deceiving.
I mean, ironically, rather than see, some activists have said that the RSPCA are making a fortune out of this. I think the truth is that they can't afford to run it.
They're not. When you look at the amount of money involved in it, in terms of the RSPCA's overall, incomings and outgoings, it's very small. It's a very small part of their of their kind of income flow, so to speak. So I think they're, yeah. I mean, I think they've taken on something that's too big for them to handle.